Shalom. To begin, I want to give all honor, all glory, and all praise to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem HaKakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, GMS who rule well. Peace and salutations to the chosen 144,000 and the rest of the elect. And to all the Akim that puts this word for the edification of the body. To you I say Shalom. This is the brother Halal from the Great Millstone Chicago branch, coming at you with another lesson of truth. And as you can see, these ICE, this Trump's militia, ICE, is doing all kinds of wild shit. As we all know, we're not unfamiliar to the activity that these militias that Trump has sent out have been doing, especially in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is currently, a war zone right now. You have all kinds of shootings happening right there. And Donald Trump, Nero 47, the name that Apostle Tahar gave him, he has plans to, he threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act, and allow more troops to go over there to Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the midst of the civil unrest going on. So, hey, man, look, man, Esau, Edom, beginning with these elites, these international bankers who ultimately control these politicians, which is where Donald Trump comes into play. Esau, Edom, the tabernacles of Esau are about to rain hell down upon this earth, man. Just like the scripture said that they would, because this is the lot that this devil has been given, to ultimately be the one to take peace from the earth. So to begin this off, matter of fact, Salaki, I actually want to read this. I had this up. It says, an ICE officer admitted to raping woman in custody for months. He did this in exchange for letting her see her daughter. So this man, forced himself upon a detainee, for months, man, in exchange for letting this woman, see her own daughter, who she gave birth to. It says David Corvell, 56, pled guilty to sexually assaulting a Nicaraguan woman over the course of several months at a Louisiana ICE detention facility. Prosecutors say that he will bring the victim letters and pictures of her daughter along with food and other gifts, which is against ICE rules. David is said to have hired lookouts while he raped the woman in a janitorial closet. Initially, David denied the accusations before confessing during an interview in September. He was released on a $10,000 bond. Wow, ain't that some shit? It says, and will be sentenced on April 10th, where his charge carries a maximum of 15 years in prison and a fine to up to $250,000. So, this sick man forced himself upon a detainee in exchange for letting this woman see her child. Was raping her, assaulting her, and all type of shit. And this is just what's been reported, from the amount of shit that this militia has done. You got reports of these ICE people beating on pregnant women, dragging them through the snow. You know what I'm saying? Beating them up, roughing up a lot of jakes, especially the Northern Kingdom, but the Southern Kingdom as well. Who knows how many people have been shot in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because a reported 2 people have gotten shot there already. That Edomite woman, Renee, and a Venezuelan man. But, man, Esau, Edom, he's about to come down with that sword, man. And there's going to be much sedition among men. But let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 19, and verse 1. And it says, the burden of Egypt, which, as we know, the modern Egypt today, is indeed America. America represents the modern Egypt today. The place which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, as the scriptures described it. And this was the burden, that was placed upon it. It says, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, And the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight, every one against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. And the spirit of Egypt shall fall in the midst thereof. Salakia. It says, shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols, and to the charmers, and to them that have familiar spirits and wizards. So ultimately, this is described as the burden of Egypt. Egyptians against Egyptians, which is Americans against Americans, civil wars, race wars, class wars, all manner of division. In situations like this, being stirring up the pot even more, because the average American, one day, they're going to lose their mind. They found out all the stuff about the corrupt things that their government has done, from the Epstein files to the MK Ultra, the mind control, torture projects, the test that Esau was running on people. All of this stuff is known and it's documented and it's on paper. So these Americans, man, they've protested. They go on TikTok, they cry and talk about how hard it is to live, and they beg, these politicians to help them and quote unquote make things go back to normal. But eventually, man, when the average Babylonian doesn't have enough food on the table to feed their children, when they don't have no food, no water, eventually they're gonna take it to the streets, man. And these elites, these top elite international banking families, as Apostle Gabar is always going into, these Rockefellers, these Rothschilds, the tabernacles of Edom, they want civil unrest because they believe in a concept called order out of chaos, man. But it's not going to go in their favor because this is ultimately going to lead to the eventual fall and destruction of Babylon the Great, man. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 12 and 12, and it says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. The word woe means destruction. So there's going to be a lot of destruction, that's going to come upon the inhabitants of the earth in these last days, man. It says, for the devil is come down upon you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And the reason I highlighted, this particular scripture read is because this is referring to the physical manifestation of the devil upon earth, mentioned in Isaiah 14 and 2nd Ezra chapter 2, which is Esau, Edom. I mean, no. 2nd Thessalonians chapter 3, is what describes a man, as coming in the working of Satan. And that's this devil, Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. In the high upper echelon tabernacles of Esau, they're going to bring down great wrath upon these people. And they're going to send out these militias, to be the ruthless enforcers and to shoot first and ask questions later when these Americans are rebelling and when they start bucking up against the government and against authority, And when these people get snatched up, and they get brought to these detention facilities and these different concentration camps, these are the type of activities that these sick, Edomite, officers are going to be doing to people. Graping them, graping their children, doing all types of sick things, man. This devil truly wants to achieve world domination, and he's willing to kill anybody to achieve that goal, man. Hey, Donald Trump, he just kidnapped the president. Sent his men out there to use sonic weapons and take out an entire army of people. And he said out of his own mouth, I don't need international law. The only thing stopping me from doing what I want to do is my own morality. So this devil, man, he's about to let loose on people because he's been exposed for such a long time and he has no other choice but to, quote unquote, crash out, as these people in the world would say. And eventually they're going to come after, the men of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. Us that are preaching this word, that are preaching the downfall of this kingdom. You know, let's get Jeremiah 28:8. It says, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms of war and of evil and of pestilence. And this is what we see before us. We see wars and rumors of wars. We see evil and we see pestilence, man. You know, the new trending disease that's currently going viral right now is that disease X. And it can probably cause another lockdown, you know, just like the one that happened in March of 2020. You know, and all these things are being orchestrated by Esau, you know, to oppress the people, man. And eventually cause that order out of chaos that they're looking for. I'll end it off with the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6. And I'll start at verse 70. Salakia. 2nd Ezra 16, Salakia. The 2nd Ezra chapter 16 and verse 70, and it says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. So eventually, you know, while these different militias, these federal agents, these branches of the military, while they're going to be out there, you know, oppressing these American citizens, you know, shooting a lot of people down, eventually they're going to set their sights on what is in their eyes the biggest threat, you know, the biggest threat to this system, which is the men of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. And they're going to come after us. You know, some of us are, according to prophecy, you know, some of us are going to get snatched up and even be killed by this devil. But it's all going to be to glorify the names of Yahweh and Yahushua. Verse 71, they should be like mad men sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. And who are those madmen going to be? Those troops, these different federal agents, these militias, you know, ICE. These are going to be the madmen that are going to be sparing none. You know, that they're going to go after men. They're going to rape women, men. You know, they're going to go after the young children. They're not going to spare the elderly. They're not going to have no pity at all. Verse 72, for they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. So in these times, man, when Esau comes down with that great wrath, and there's just this noise of death in the earth, you feel the vibration of evil, you see death all around you. You know, like it says in Psalms 91, 1,000 shall fall at thy right hand, you know, and 10,000 at the left, roughly paraphrasing. The elect are going to be protected, man. You know, they're going to be kept. Matter of fact, let me just end it off with Psalms 91. Since I quoted the scripture, I don't know if I quoted it 100%, but this is the book of Psalms 91. And I'll start at 1. It says, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And coming into these last days where you feel the vibration of evil in the earth, and there's so much war, disease, pestilence, and death, you know, now is the time to truly abide under the shadow of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua and put on the whole armor of God, you know, spiritually and figuratively, you know, by staying occupied in prophecy, by thinking upon his name, by meditating on these scriptures, you know, and fellowshipping amongst the brothers. Verse 2, I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress and my God, in him will I trust. Surely he shall deliver me from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh unto thee. So in these last days, when Esau, you know, allows these different troops and militias to go wild, you know, take out as many Americans as they can, you know, when Americans rebel against their government, you know, we're going to see a lot of death around us, man. We're going to see a lot of corpses and a lot of bodies piled upon each other, and that stench is going to be something foul, you know. But the scripture said, that these things would come by, and that we would see bodies upon bodies all around us, man. You know, but it shall not come nigh unto thee. So we're gonna witness a great amount of death, but it's not gonna come upon us, man. We're gonna walk through it. We're gonna be delivered. You know what I mean? Salakia, the elect, Salakia. Verse 8, only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. And that's what we're ultimately trying to do every single day. You know, so that in the day of evil that Esau, Edom is going to bring upon this earth, you know, we could abide and hopefully receive salvation and be delivered from the death and destruction that's coming upon Babylon the Great. You know, so with that, I hope this lesson was edifying. I want to give all honor, all glory, and all praise to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, Bashim Makakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone GMS who rule well. Shalom, and I'll see you in the next lesson.